Welcome to the Do Life in a Body You Love podcast. I'm Nikki O'Day, and we are going to talk about any and every topic that will get you showing up bigger and bolder in your life. Weight loss, relationships, mindset, it's all on the table. It may not come out real PC, but if you're sick of motivational rah-rah talks that don't lead to any real change in your life, then you're in the right place. Let's jump into today's episode. Welcome to the Do Life in a Body You Love podcast. You guys, I'm so excited. It's week number 3 with an amazing guest. We kicked the dudes off this time. We're back to this being a chick only podcast for the moment. I have my girl Cassie here with me. She is a wealth of knowledge. This one will again be focused on health and wellness. So Cassie, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's so nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, for sure. So we got to chat a bit when we were all in North Carolina together. And I love that your focus is on a lot of autoimmune stuff and gut health. And why don't you just tell the listeners, like, what do you do? Who do you help? And then we can start to kind of nerd out about some different things.
Sounds good. Yeah. So I am a nutritionist and health coach. I really specialize in autoimmune diseases. I kind of started with that mostly because of my mom, who has 3 autoimmune diseases. Just wanted, a healthier choices for her have a better quality of life. And I knew there just had to be other answers than medication, because unfortunately, a lot of times doctors just put people on medication and, that covers the symptoms, that doesn't cover the problem, which again, it all starts in the gut. So, just having those options for her and other people, I really, really want to help so many people feel better, because autoimmune diseases can be very crippling, depending on which ones people have. And, obviously can also have problems losing weight. And then if you're on medication, which doesn't help you lose weight, it's just one thing after another. So I help people get their gut back on track. And then, if they do want to lose weight, continue with them there to be able to do that. So
awesome. I love that. How long have you been doing that for?
A couple of years. Started, of course, around the pandemic, but so with her, it's been a longer process just because it really has been a learning curve and so forth. So now I feel like I've got all this great, information under my belt and being able to help people with that. So
cool. Autoimmune is near and dear to my heart because I have a propensity for who knows what autoimmune diseases. My sister also has them. I feel like all of my clients, not all of my clients, but a good percentage of my clients have some sort of autoimmune disease. And so I think it's just becoming so prevalent. Mm-hmm. Our awareness of it, of course, is increasing, but the prevalence of it is for sure increasing.
Yes, it definitely is. So
why don't you break down for us how the gut affects that?
Okay. So with autoimmune diseases, basically, unfortunately, to whatever extent, people have leaky gut. So your gut lining is weak, it's open, you eat in certain foods and it goes into your bloodstream. Your immune system is trying to protect you. Obviously, it protects us from sickness and so forth, but it's hyperactive with people with autoimmune diseases. And so what it does is it sees, for instance, like gluten or dairy, and it kind of goes berserk and it attacks the gluten, but it also, and the dairy, but then it also can attack your own body. So rheumatoid arthritis, it does your joints, Hashimoto's, it attacks your thyroid, psoriasis or psoriatic arthritis, you get the skin problems and so forth. It just kind of goes berserk. And again, unfortunately, medication will calm the immune system down, but then you don't have an immune system to fight off sickness. So for instance, my mom was on Humira for a while and she had no immune system. We'd go out once a week to get groceries or church or whatever, and she'd get sick for a couple of days. So finding the solution to then close the gut to heal it and get those things under control is really honestly what we're now needing to do. So,
which can
yeah.
be quite a process.
It can be. It can take a while, depending on, again, how badly your gut is. So, yeah.
But it sounds like your mom's had a good turnaround. That's awesome.
Yes, she definitely has. So she's not on any medications. She's only on vitamins and has lost weight, has a better quality of life. I'm just so happy for her. So
that's so amazing. And sometimes we need the medications, right? But if you can at all do what you can, right, to try to hamper things, because yes, a lot of times you end up on immunosuppressives, depending on what the autoimmune is, a lot of steroids, which then doesn't help women who are trying to lose weight, for sure. I mean, they're magical, they make you feel better in the moment, but so when you start working with somebody, like, what kinds of things can women do to start healing their gut? Like, for people who've never heard of this leaky gut thing, they're like, what is she talking about? What do I do?
Yeah. So, nutrition is the biggest thing. I mean, getting out the processed foods. And, I've really tried to break that down of what processed foods is, because even for me, for a while, it's like, what does that mean? But just so much food in the grocery stores that just have fillers and, 20 ingredients in something that you don't need. So getting that out really alone cleans your gut out, really gets good bacteria back in there and so forth. Having a good pre and probiotic is really important to getting that back on. In my program, I have a specific supplement that I give out, and it does close the lining of your gut, and it gets good bacteria into your gut to make that work well, because there's still so much information we don't know about, like the mind gut connection. And I am going to nerd out here, but
do it.
But yeah, so, what we put in our stomach affects our brain. And I'm learning a lot, even just about, what we put in our gut affects depression, anxiety, things like that. So not only autoimmune problems, but so many other things that we're like, what is suddenly wrong with me? I've never had these problems before. And then if you look at your diet, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm eating crap. And, it doesn't work well for the gut and the brain, because we've never had this much junk in our food as we do now. So trying to eat cleaner and so forth really helps all of that. But yeah, so, back to autoimmune, that supplement closes your gut. It helps all those things, because a lot of times too, people don't want to go on a gluten-free or dairy-free diet. Again, before I knew about this supplement, my mom did for a while, and she dealt with it, but it's not fun. And a lot of people don't want to do that, compared to maybe, taking a supplement, which will heal a lot. And then you don't have to even, clean out your pantry and go with that type of food. So to me, it's a better option, an easier option for people to make that decision than, oh, I got to cut food out of, certain foods out of my diet. But yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So unless somebody has a true like dairy allergy, they can just take this supplement and it binds to it. Like, how does this thing work? What is this supplement? How does it work?
So it's a mineral, and it's of course all from the dirt. Great things come from the dirt. But yeah, it basically goes in, and it just heals the lining back up. So it closes those holes. It's sort of like a probiotic. I still recommend taking another probiotic, but it gets that good bacteria back into your gut. It can be very strong for somebody who has a very leaky gut. So you have to start very, very small as far as that goes throughout the day. And you take it before a meal and so forth. But yeah, it's helped my mom, and that's the best way I can describe it, is like it just heals those holes in your gut. So then the food is not leaking out, your body isn't overreacting and attacking itself. And again, then you're cleaning your gut out, putting in that good bacteria, and then obviously, hopefully, helping with better nutrition and so forth to also be getting good stuff in your gut.
Nice. So for the listeners who aren't familiar, I'm going to clarify a couple of points here. And you tell me if I got this right, because you're the pro at this. But for those of you who are listening to this, who are like, okay, yeah, I've heard of leaky gut, but I don't really get it or whatever. I want to just, there's different categories of things going on here. So number one is you can have a true gluten allergy. Most people don't. Okay.
Right.
Many people are gluten sensitive because of what Cassie's talking about with this leaky gut issue. And it's not that your body actually can't tolerate gluten. It's that where your body is at right now, it can't tolerate gluten, dairy, things like that. So there's lactose intolerance. I can't have dairy. There is celiac. I can't have gluten. Those people, you ain't getting those things back. Okay. Just keep them out. But that's not the majority of people. But what happens is you have these tight junctions in your colon all over the place, right? This is how your body absorbs nutrients out of your digestive tract. When your gut has been irritated for long enough from whatever the culprit is, and those culprits can be many things: stress, inactivity, caffeine, medications. By the way, don't shoot the messenger. I'm keeping my coffee. Okay. If any of you just listened to that and you were like, wait, what? Like, some things are going to irritate some people and some things aren't, but these are just the common things. And then over antibiotic use. I am not knocking on antibiotics. They are like the biggest miracle to medicine ever. However, they're not without their own effects. So young kids who had ear infections all the time and were always on antibiotics tend to grow up with gut issues. Just all of these different things. And so it's multifaceted, right? So your gut gets to the point where those tight junctions, they ain't tight no more.
Yeah.
Stuff be leaking through there. And then like Cassie was explaining, your immune system goes, okay, this is an invader. We need to attack. So your immune system is attacking things that it ought not to attack, right? So all of that to say, if you can get your gut in check, a lot of people can actually go back to things that used to be triggers for them.
Yes,
but
absolutely.
You got to figure out what those triggers are and you got to get them out typically. And then what you're saying, Cassie, is there's actually some supplementation and things that people can do to kind of facilitate that gut healing process.
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. Okay, cool.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I recommend to anybody, if you notice, you're starting, like you said, some of the things you mentioned with gluten or dairy, or even down to something like tomatoes. If you eat something and you notice like, oh my gosh, my stomach isn't feeling really well and stuff like that, especially with gluten and dairy, those to me are the biggest two triggers that, if you're getting sensitive to those things, that to me is where your gut lining is getting, spread out thinner. Holes might be starting to open, and there's really no, test for that as far as that goes, except, I don't feel comfortable. I feel this way when I eat these things. And so that is a good indication that it's kind of like, okay, what can I do to get that back in line? So like you said, you can go back and you can still be eating those things. It's not like, oh my gosh, I go down this road, I have to be gluten and dairy free for the rest of my life. That's not, legit either. So
how do you suggest that people kind of figure out what their triggers are? Or do you just normally start people off with like, hey, you have something autoimmune going on. Why don't you just pull the dairy and the gluten out and see what happens? See if you feel better.
Yeah, that's typically what I've done, is that those are especially the first two major triggers is gluten and dairy. And so, if first off, if you already know you have an autoimmune problem, if you've been diagnosed with one, then those are just, those are the problems right there. So again, you can take those things out of your diet if you're wanting to. People who work with me, they can, again, get on the supplement and it helps them and they don't even have to do that. But if you feel like, or you even have, my mom, my whole family has autoimmune problems. So I make sure I take care or really listen to what my body is saying when I eat food and so forth. Sometimes too, I notice on my skin, for instance, just the other day, I just had a little bit of psoriasis pop up. And so it's kind of like, okay, I really need to, make sure I'm detoxing correctly, doing all of those things. And that is a whole other process we won't get into, but, just making sure that I'm taking care of myself. I'm, looking at my body, making sure I'm reading the signs, I'm listening to it and so forth. But those are definitely the first steps. Like if you really want to do oh shoot, it just went out of my head. Taking stuff out of your diet and elimination diet, there we go, and really finding out what foods really affect you, you can absolutely do that. But like I said, I really like my program now because you can kind of skip that and just go to the supplement and it takes care of those things for you. So
very interesting. I've never heard of such a thing until you started telling me about this.
Yeah, exactly.
Because elimination diets suck.
Yeah.
But they're,
and you got to do it for like a month.
Yeah. But I mean, and typically they're a necessary evil because food allergy tests are crap.
Yeah.
Like if your body is inflamed, you have a food allergy on these tests to like a million things that you're not actually probably even allergic to. So then people end up on these super restrictive diets. Sometimes by the time people come to me, they're like, I'm like, what do you just eat like lettuce? What's going on here?
Right.
You're not actually allergic to all these things. So it's so confusing for people. And then there's other things that affect your gut too, right? So why don't we dive down that rabbit hole?
So be more specific with that question.
Okay. So if you're maybe this isn't something that you typically are seeing with women, but like for me, like people who are like super stressed out, people who obviously eating trash, like I did forever. Like I lived off pizza rolls, you guys, and like lived on my couch. Like I'm lucky my gut isn't a bigger mess than it was, to be honest. And so maybe that's not a topic that we need to necessarily dive down as all the extra things. But what else do you kind of want women who are struggling with things like this to know?
Yeah, I mean, to me, I'm finding stress is a big problem. I mean, obviously, we are in such a stressful world right now. And then, COVID changed everything even more and all of that. And so when you are in such a stressed out mode all the time, your stomach doesn't digest properly. It's in that fight or flight mode, and you have to calm it down because your brain thinks that you are honestly in a worst case scenario, somebody's trying to kill you. It can't tell the difference between that, from our ancestors, and your boss has got this deadline on you and you feel so stressed out, or your kids are, whatever, it's summertime and, you've got so much to do with your kids and so forth. It's like your body can't tell the difference. Your brain puts your stomach into that stress mode. Again, that mind gut connection. And it shuts down your digestion in your stomach. So you're not absorbing everything that you should be doing. You might be having irregular bowel movements because things aren't going through properly. And you have to find what works for you. And a lot of times that is just breathing before you eat. That's just, trying to calm down and so forth. So, really trying to calm your system down, taking time throughout the day for yourself to be able to, get your gut back into that. And again, I mean, especially with this, program of the autoimmune part, I really teach my clients about nutrition, because again, what we put in our bodies, I'm just learning so much more and more, and try not to get all, in people's faces about it, but it's kind of like, it really matters what we put in our stomachs. If you're going to put stuff that is full of sugar all the time, you're going to put stuff that has just got, again, dyes or, fillers, as far as bad flours and bad oils, that your stomach can handle it so long and it adapts, but then it just can't handle it any longer. And that's where these problems start to come in, with your lining breaking up and so forth. And you were saying about those allergy tests. Yeah. All of a sudden you have all of these allergies, but quite frankly, you probably don't, because again, the holes in your gut are open and food is just leaking out, and your body is reacting to this, because your body shouldn't be reacting to food being in your bloodstream, So it's kind of like, all of a sudden you have all these allergies, and in all honesty, you don't have all of these allergies. It's just, you need to heal that gut. So,
yeah. And sometimes I've even found, once we start food journaling with people, that like the triggers that they're actually having symptoms to aren't even the things that necessarily show up on those tests. Now, sometimes they are, right?
Yeah.
But like, I don't know if I've ever seen a food allergy test come back and it didn't say something about wheat and gluten anyways.
Right.
So I'm like, why are you paying for this test?
Exactly.
You hit a really great point though. I hope that you guys heard what Cassie just said, is that your gut can handle this stuff for a minute. Like, it's not like I'm sure you kind of want to walk around and smack donuts out of people's hands when you see them on the street because you're inundated with this, right? But like you said, you're trying not to be in people's face. But the reality is that your gut can handle a lot of abuse, right? Your body can actually handle a lot of abuse. You don't need to be perfect. But if you've gotten your body to this point where your gut's no longer tolerating these things, now it's like, oh, we got to do a little recon here. It cleans some stuff up. What kinds of symptoms do you see with people? Like, if you had a client who they're food journaling some things out, what symptoms are you telling them to look for when they're eating different foods? Like, what would be like a, maybe that's not so good for you?
Definitely if you're cramping, unexpectedly, if you're really, really bloated. I mean, I'm still, like, little side note, I'm still learning about my own body, and I've just realized that I have low acidity in my stomach, and I've just, bloated throughout the day when I'm eating. And my mom is like, oh, it's because of your grandfather, her father. It's just, that's how it is. And I'm like, well, there has to be something for this. So, I started taking apple cider vinegar and it started helping. So and then it's like, oh, I feel better. So really, really honestly listening to your body and being like, okay, I'm bloating more after I eat this food. I'm cramping up after I eat this food. Even too, like I was saying with like depression and so forth, what you put in your body, all of a sudden it's like, maybe the next day you feel really depressed or something like that. With my mom, with her Hashimoto's, she would just, if she ate anything gluten before I got her on the supplement, the next day she would have no energy. She would just be out because it attacked her thyroid and all of that. Her psoriasis would flare up and things like that. And so those, for people who already have the autoimmune problems, that's where, you might experience more pain in your joints with rheumatoid, things like that. If again, it's just slightly out, it would be the cramping and the bloating probably the most. So
yeah, there's a huge connection between what's going on in our gut and the rest of our world. So like your neurotransmitters, your neurohormones are made in your gut. There's a huge correlation with anxiety and depression. Exactly. And then of course, general inflammation, aches and pains, stuff like that. For me, it was always like a swollenness in my hands and I would get bladder spasms all the time.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay.
So that's all just irritation, right, guys? So general irritation. We're not meant to have all this weird stuff happening all the time, but we just get used to it. And we're like your mom, like, I don't know, that's how your grandpa always was. So that's why you're that way.
Right. Exactly. So, and that's something too that I'm really trying. I was just talking to a friend on Saturday and she's like, I know I need to feel better, or I need to get better. And all of that. And she's like, but I've just gotten so used to how I am. And I want to be like, guys, there's a better option out there. And especially for something like this, which, like you said, more and more people are starting to feel, have autoimmune problems, even have, sensitivities to food, that it's kind of like, don't think that, okay, well, this is how it's going to be for the rest of my life. Like, I am a person of like, there's got to be an option. There's got to be a solution to the problem. It can't just be, well, my mom has to live in this pain for the rest of her life, or my friends have to live, in this pain, because my friend from Saturday, she's got an autoimmune problem. And I'm like, again, I kind of want to shake her, but it's like, I can really help you and I can help you feel better, but you have to really make that choice and just, again, be aware, things like this, getting the word out that there's other solutions than medication, and just living with it, because quite frankly, they're now saying, well, you'll have to be on this medication for the rest of your life with this chronic problem. And no, we're not supposed to be on medications, long term. As you said, it might be good in the moment. It might be for acute reasons, but long term, nobody is supposed to be on it. My aunt, she's been on like 3 or 4 immunosuppressant drugs because she's gotten immune to them. And I keep trying to talk to her, and I just can't convince her, but just being open to be like, okay, there's an answer out there, so let's fix it.
And this is kind of where I think about it, is because, I came from the traditional medicine world.
Yeah.
The things that you do to heal your gut typically, which is good nutrition, getting good sleep, working out, it's nothing crazy. And it's so funny because it doesn't matter what rabbit hole you want to jump down. So like for a while I obsessed about gut health. And then for a while, like I obsessed about like your nervous system and like the stress piece. And then I obsessed about like all of these other avenues that you can go down. It all comes back to the same thing. Eat good food, move your body enough, but not too much, get some rest, have good social support. Like these things are good for your body, no matter what the culprit is. It doesn't matter if it's autoimmune or you have something wrong with your nervous system. It doesn't matter. It's all going to come back down to these things, right? Yeah. So all of that rambling to say, if you have something going on with your body and you suspect that your gut may be the issue, and you try some of these things that Cassie is suggesting, like eating healthy food, it's not going to hurt you. Are you magically going to come off your medications? Maybe, maybe not. Some people do, some people don't. At the end of the day, it's making your baseline better. Exactly. Because even on the medications, you only feel so good. You still have flare-ups, you know what I mean? And so if you can slow down the progression, even if you can't fully resolve a disease process, if you can slow its progression, or you can just feel better in your day-to-day, like that's a huge win, right? Okay, I ate some broccoli and I feel better today because I didn't have the bread. Well, great. You have a whole day where you can go be energized, and like who doesn't want that? But I get it, because I didn't know how good I could feel.
Yeah.
This is how when you feel bad, you just don't know you feel bad. You think it's normal.
Yeah. I mean, it becomes normal. Yeah. Because my friend, she's been living this way. My aunt, she's been living this way for so long. It becomes your new, like you said, your new baseline, your new normal. So, when people say feeling better and having more energy, and you just think, oh, that can't happen. Then, I've been so long this way, that's not possible, and so forth. And that's not true, but you just forget, and it's just unfortunate. So that's why, again, I'm trying to be like, you can have more energy, you can feel better, and until somebody wants it badly enough, they just kind of forget. I think it's just like, my friend, she's like, well, it's just been this way for so long. I just keep going, and it's like, oh my gosh, but to live that way, to just kind of survive instead of, really having a better quality of life is also something that I really want to get across to people who come to work with me, because you can feel so much better. And all of a sudden, I mean, I'm not saying, you're in your 50s or 60s and you can feel like you're 20, but I don't know, you might, or, you haven't experienced it for, for that long. So you don't know until you just clean your system out. And I always try, I know women don't always go with cars, but especially with men, it's like, try and think of it as a car or some sort of machine, that it's kind of like, we got to clean everything out. We have to clean out the engine. We have to clean out, the viruses from our computer or whatever it is, for things to be running correctly. And that's exactly how the body is. If you're not keeping up on it and cleaning it out, then, these blocks are going to come up in your body. And then you're just all of a sudden like, where did that come from? And then you just get used to it and you don't think about it and you just keep going, which is so unfortunate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wasn't even really aware that I didn't feel well until the obvious things. With the bladder spasms, they're quite obnoxious. So for those of you who are listening, that's like, what's a bladder spasm? Think about how it feels when you have a UTI, you have a urinary tract infection, and you have to pee all the time, but you really don't have to pee all the time. That's because of the bladder spasms from the bacteria, except for I was having them with no bacteria. I didn't have a UTI. I was just having bladder spasms. So people with interstitial cystitis, which is autoimmune, they have that. Once I had obvious symptoms, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But leading up to that, when I was just exhausted, and I thought it was because I worked night shift and I had young kids, and it's like, this is adulthood. You're just tired all the time.
Right.
So no, you guys don't have to really be that tired all the time. I promise. Even if you are working. working night
Exactly. And
shift.
sometimes, as you were saying, is like, what are the symptoms of that with food? Kind of the same thing. It's kind of like with being tired, you have to stop and say, okay, really, and it's not going to take like 5 seconds and you figure it out. It might take a while to figure out, okay, am I tired? Am I tired because of just, one thing on top of the other because of life? Or yeah, am I tired because all of a sudden it's like, well, I have been so busy that I just grab whatever I can for me and the kids and we go out the door and haven't been the best food choices. Again, listening to your body, but it's not always just, society kind of just puts it on of like, oh, well, that's life, or, that's just how things become when you get older and stuff like that. And it's like, no, it doesn't have to be, I think we just have to figure it out for ourselves personally, because nobody can tell you except for yourself if there's something wrong with your body. You know your body the best, but if you haven't been listening to it for a long time, you have to get back into that habit of like, okay, I need to listen, I need to figure out, are these things legit, or do I just need to make some better choices with moving, food, all the basics?
Yeah. It just checking back in with yourself, taking a second to do that, because everybody's so freaking busy. Like
Exactly.
a lot can be going on with your body before you even notice, right? Just because we are all busy, it happens. But like taking the time to do a little check-in. Okay, how am I feeling? How's my energy? How's my mood? All of these things. Is there something that needs to be addressed here? And then not being like so about it that like your thumb twitches one time and you're like, am I having a stroke? What's going on? Don't overanalyze, people.
That too.
Sorry, I'm a nurse, so all my hypochondriac friends call me constantly. This happened. What is this? I'm like, we don't need to overanalyze everything.
Right.
Do a check-in. How are you really feeling? You know what I mean? And then get the help if you need it. Start making small changes, things like that. I love it.
Yeah, definitely.
I think that's so important that you do what you do, because you're helping spread the word about all of this stuff. It's becoming a little bit more mainstream, I think, but there's still a lot of confusion around it. And
exactly. And I'm trying to be as clear as possible and just saying, look, I mean, there are more people who have these problems, and, there are answers to, I mean, an autoimmune problem, you're never going to get rid of it. It's not curable, but being able to control it better, keep it maintained, you can definitely have such a better quality of life than just, like you said, going on medications and things still flaring up. And you just think, well, the doctor says this is what I'm supposed to do. And I get it. I'm not against doctors, but, they don't have all the answers either. And so just putting somebody on medication for the rest of their lives is not the answer, but getting to the root problem. Unfortunately, with Western medicine, we look at everything so separately, and everything is so connected in our body. And just, a heart doctor and a liver doctor and, all of that, it's like they all do separate things, when it's kind of like, okay, but quite frankly, something else isn't working correctly. So how can we really figure that out and address it and, get to the root cause to take care of that? So that's what I'm all about.
Sorry, my dog's barking.
Okay.
Yeah, no, and help your doctor. Like they can't heal everything up for you if you're not doing your part too. Right.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Everybody has a role to play. You have the most authority and control of your body and can do the most healing. Your doctor is a diagnostic. They're going to diagnose things. They're going to give you whatever medications they can to help you. They might even tell you to make some lifestyle changes, and you scratch your head and go, how do I do that, doctor? That's what a health coach is there to help you do. Make the lifestyle changes. You go to a health coach, but do your part to heal things up, and you all work together instead of just showing up at your doctor's door like, okay, got myself real jacked up. What are we going to do about it?
Exactly. Yeah. Because again, unfortunately, with especially the American society, it's like, here's a pill, take it and it'll fix everything. And it's kind of like the pill will help, but as you said, there can be flare-ups. And if you're still eating horribly, then, the medicine isn't going to do everything that it's supposed to do anyway. And again, quite frankly, food can be such a healer. If you put the right stuff in your body and you take care of your body correctly, it'll heal itself. And like you said, I'm not saying that some people can't go off of medications, some people can, but it's a very big possibility of just eating better, doing your part, as you said. It's like, okay, well, I'll take the medication for a while to help me. I'll get back on track with eating and moving more and stuff like that. And then the problem takes care of itself, and they'll either be able to lower the dosage of the medication or take you completely off of it because you've done your part. But they're so overrun with patients and trying to help people that, they can't take care of everything. And yeah, if you're not going to do your part, then sorry, but yeah.
You got to do your part.
Exactly.
And
So,
for anybody who's listening, who's like, I'm just here for some weight loss. Okay. Let me tell you guys, let me tell you how much easier it is when you find out what your food triggers are. So so my clients, I don't remove food groups randomly because I'm not specifically dealing with autoimmune. I'm dealing with weight loss. And so a lot of people can keep gluten and dairy and lose weight just fine. No problem. But there's some key indicators where I'm like, oh, I feel like we need to pull the gluten out. And I have one client in particular. I love her so much. This woman has been trying to lose weight for, I don't know, 2 decades. And she is like a go-getter about it. Like, she is not a slacker. Okay. She's doing the vigorous workouts. She's cleaning up her food, like whatever, doing all these diets, all the things. And she'll lose maybe like 5 pounds. And then it comes back on and she's so frustrated. And I'm like, okay, boo, we got to at least pull the gluten for a second and maybe the dairy and just see what happens. And she did not want to do it. She's like, this and that and the other, whatever. And I'm like, just try it for a couple of weeks and see how you feel. I'm not saying you can't have it ever. So like a week later, I get a text from her and I didn't even want to check it. I was like, oh dear God, she's probably cussing me out. What is she going to say? And she's like, I've never felt this good in my life. The scale just went down 5 pounds.
Oh, wow.
Blah, 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 blah. Now, it hasn't been easy because you know how it is. If you really do truly react to gluten like she does, and you have to pull it out forever, you go through all of these like emotional things about it, right? Like, F this is not fair. You know what I'm saying? We go through these things when you can't have things. Yeah. And so there was like some back and forth with it, but all in all, I mean, since the beginning of January, was it January that we pulled it? February? I don't know. Anyways, she's down like 35 pounds. Girl could never lose more than 5.
Wow. That's amazing.
She's eating a ton of food. She's just not eating dairy and gluten. And again, asterisks for the listeners, your thing might not be gluten and dairy. I am not making any claims like that. I'm just saying for her, it was apparent that these things are not good for her body in this season of whatever's happening. We pull out the inflammatory triggers. Boom. She's losing weight. Foggy brain gone. Energy up. Even her temperament is different. Like, she is just like more assertive, I guess I would say, like, because she feels good, right? Yeah. She's not so just like beaten down and just like, whatever, I can't figure out my life, just like kind of like life's been kicking her down kind of thing. No, she's like a boss now. She's like, whatever, this is how things are going to be. And I'm like, who are you?
Right. That's awesome.
Yeah. It's the most drastic transformation I think I've ever seen. But like, you guys gotta like play detective sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that is something that people don't always like to do either. And it's kind of like, okay, but again, making that decision of like, okay, either you just slowly go down this road and you're going to gradually just feel worse and worse, or you stop and you start training yourself, like we were talking about, listening to your body, taking a moment, doing all of that. And that gets easier and easier too. I mean, all of it, as both of us have experience with people, it's starting to get the habits into place. Just talking to my client last week, and she's like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize, we're kind of 3, almost a month in. And she's like, I didn't know the habits would be harder. I mean, she's kind of a go-getter too, like all or nothing. But I said, well, you've lived this way for how long? And she was like, oh, I know. But I said, well, stick with it. So again, it takes time to get those habits into place. And once you start doing it, then it's like immediately it's kind of like, oh my gosh, I don't feel good. Why don't I feel good? Let's take a moment and figure that out. And it's definitely worth it, because then you're just on top of it and you want to feel better. So,
Yeah.
you know.
Hey, and you know what? If you're just getting started and you find your food triggers, right, and things are going great, go ahead and screw it up a few weeks in. Go ahead,
Yeah.
because it's just good reinforcement. Like I've done it myself. My clients have done it. And it's like, I was on such a good roll. Why did I eat the pizza? Again, I'm not knocking pizza, you guys. I'm not a food zealot. I still drink craft beer and eat pizza. I'm not a food, like Nazi about it by any means, but you're just picking and choosing your battles and understand what you're doing to yourself. Right. And the more times that you introduce a food trigger when your body is still in this healing process and you just feel like absolute trash, each time you do it, you have more resolve to not do it again, because you're like, that didn't really feel worth it. It's kind of like booze, right? You could party when you were young. And then the older you get, you got to be a little bit more strategic. Like sometimes it's worth it. But if I have to go to a kid's birthday party at Chuck E. Cheese tomorrow, probably I'm not going to drink today, because that sounds like the worst thing that could happen to my life is having to go into Chuck E. Cheese's with a hangover. So you pick and choose how you're going to roll with things, right?
Exactly. And that's absolutely right, because it just reinforces it. And it's like, I don't want to feel this crappy again. So why am I doing this to myself? And it does sometimes. I'm one of those people, like, first time, okay, won't do that again. Some people take a little bit longer, and that's okay too. But it does.
I'm a glutton for punishment. So every few weeks I might be like, well, I feel like I don't really have this problem, because I start feeling better and I'm like, I don't, like, I'm going through all this histamine stuff right now. Right. And I'm like, I feel good. And I'm like, I can have some cheese. And then I'm like, face is red, anxiety attack. And I'm like, oh, I guess I really do have this problem. Fine.
I guess maybe not next time.
Maybe not. I guess I can't have my charcuterie boards yet, but I'm always testing the water.
Yeah. Well, and you never know. You want to get this to that point where it's like, you can enjoy it again, and there will come a time, but I guess still not yet. So
not my season for it yet.
Yeah. Aww.
Well, this has been super informative. Is there anything else that you want to share with the listeners about any of this?
The only other thing is, like, I was thinking earlier, just kind of comparing too, because we were saying, the body can handle a lot. For some people, that just comes at different points in their life. I have found the analogy of, you fill up a glass of water and, obviously you fill it up all the way and it overflows. But that is the analogy of what age you are in life. For instance, when I was talking to my mom after we've, cleaned all of this up, and she stopped for a moment and she's like, Cassie, I really think my overflow problem happened when I was really young, like as a teenager. She's like, because she's always had psoriasis and problems like that. So, some people can happen when they're really, really young. And again, it's like, well, we're more informed now, but a generation or so ago, it's kind of like, well, we're doing the best that we can, so we'll just keep going with it. Or like me, I kind of like a rock solid stomach and almost nothing affects it except for the weird bloating, which I figured out. So that's good. But anyway, so I've never really had a problem. I could eat whatever, I could do whatever, and not a problem. And my mom couldn't. So again, just kind of being aware of that. Again, talking to my friend on Saturday, she's like, I've had these problems since I was a baby. And I'm just sitting here like, wow, but you've never taken the time to really solve the problem, So analyzing that for people, and not like that's super important, something to do, but just kind of like something to think about, that it's like, well, why am I having this problem? And, my brother or my sister isn't having that problem. We all work differently. It all comes out differently in our lives, but just again saying, well, I need to take that step and I need to heal myself. I want to feel better. I want to have more energy. I want to be able to eat food and not have to, miss out on it or take a pill or something like that. So yeah, that's about it. So,
and start with whatever you can. Sorry, my dog is interrupting. Sebastian, would you like to say hello to the podcast? No?
Hi there.
He's laying on the floor. I don't know what he's all upset about. But he's upset about something. Starting with what you can, it can feel so overwhelming at first when you're listening to this, and it's like, so like working with somebody who has experience with this can be helpful, or just taking things into bite-sized pieces and doing what you can. Eventually it gets kind of fun. Like I love helping people pull these puzzle pieces together only because there's patterns. Right. And when you've done it for long enough, you see the patterns. But even for my own health, like it gets to be fun. Like, oh, I made this little tweak and now I feel better, or now my body is doing this. And you can see, you make a modification, your body behaves this way, cause and effect. And it's very fun for it to play out once you understand how it all fits together.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it is fun.
So I'm sure that you put out amazing content. Where can our listeners learn more from Cassie? Where can they follow you? Where are you active on social media or whatever?
I am on Facebook. My company's name is Here's to Your Health. So you just look that up. Also on Instagram, which is Cassie.Here's HERES.your.health. So it's really long.
Listeners, that's going to go in the show notes. Okay. I'll put all her stuff in the show notes.
Thank you. So I'm starting to post a lot more about autoimmune stuff and things like that. I've got a 30-day reset program and so forth. So all of those things with that supplement, and so just want to get the word out. Thank you for having me on here and letting me talk about all my nerdy stuff that I love to talk about. So.
Yeah, no, I love it. I also love gut health. Like I ask my clients all the time whenever they have complaints, I'm like, well, how was your poop? They're like, all Nikki wants to talk about is poop. Like, listen, poop is important. Gut health is important. It's all important. Yep. So yes, I will put all of this in the show notes so that the listeners can follow you. Thank you so much for being on. Loved having you here. And I will chat with you soon, I'm sure. Thanks for tuning in. It is my mission to give women back the confidence that they need to show up bigger in their lives. Right now, the world more than ever needs women who are on fire and living their purpose. If you want to join me in this mission, there's a few things you can do. 1, you can share this podcast with the women in your circle. 2, you can join me in my Facebook group, Simplified Fat Loss, or you can subscribe to my newsletter at NikkiO'Day.com.